Welcome back, everyone. I'm David Greenberg, and I have a very special guest today. I'm here with Divine Mother 777, and her brand is called Divine Trust Babies. Divine is a mother and wife, but she's also principally an educator, and she's been educating on a lot of the topics that we've been talking about on this channel, including operating in the private, setting up your trusts, correcting your status, becoming a secured party, even things like credit repair. So we're probably going to have a lot to talk about today. Don't worry about it. I've got my notepad here. I'm ready to take some notes. And Divine, it's really great to have you here on the channel. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Much gratitude. This was exciting for me because I have done podcasts in the past, but I'm really not really, big on, I'm kind of like a solo person. So I feel like this is divinely guided and I appreciate you having me.
Well, that's amazing. And like I said, we have a lot of folks in our network who are very interested in all these topics that you've been educating on and others. So I
Good.
think there's going to be a lot of value. Before we get into the specifics of the classes and the material, though, what I'd love to hear from you is maybe whatever you're willing to share from your backstory of how you got into all of this.
Okay. Yeah. That's kind of something I really take pride in doing because I like to tell my backstory. I like people to know, what they're going to get from me up front and kind of just I'm an honest person. So, I'm originally from Baltimore, Maryland, born and raised there. I met my husband there as a teen. We've been together for almost 21 years. All of our children are together. We have three children. Um, we kind of like wanted to live life differently. We always have. We always saw things, you know, wrong in the world. And so like raised in a family that come from poverty because we don't have anything to this day. My mom still decides to use the system to live when she can be above it, even though she has me, to tell her. But that's another story for another day. um I always saw the world differently, and I always questioned why things were the way they were. When I was in high school, I was really into history. So I studied history to a level that was kind of like beyond where I was supposed to be. So what I was being taught in class, it just didn't add up. And that just went from one thing to another. I've always been into learning, always questioning things. And then I ended up having to use credit and I didn't understand why I had to use it. And I didn't have that kind of financial literacy taught to me through school or my parents because neither one of them understand that. And so I got into financial literacy. Me and my husband did it together. We started a credit repair business. But before we did that, we practiced on our own credit and we practiced on our family members' credit for free just so we can figure out, how to do it. Long story short, we found out about laws. These laws that were called consumer protection laws that we never knew existed, and these laws were created to protect the consumer. And when we started digging into that, me especially, I started realizing that it's more to this system than we've been taught. There's a backstory to why we need to be in a certain position. Now I'm starting to see why there's a distinction between upper class and middle class and lower class as we were taught, right? Now I'm starting to see that and put that together. So now I'm seeing that there's laws that protect us. Also, I'm seeing that every person that was able to build a financial empire, they always started off very low and then they learned something about business and they learned about credit and they've been using credit. And that one thing led to another. Then I started learning about sovereignty from having a credit repair business, understanding consumer protection laws and how they protect the consumers. And then I'm like, it's more to the story. I start learning about more stuff. David Wynn Miller has helped me out a lot if you guys have not ever watched him. But he was one of the ones that I put a lot of time into watching his lectures because they were so broad. And it helped me when I went to go study all of this stuff for myself. And one day I made a video on TikTok. This is unintentional. Just a video telling people, do you know that these bills have already been paid? Do you know this? Do you know that? And this video went viral. And overnight, my page went viral. This was when it was really easy to go viral on TikTok. I'm on like my fourth page now. But and I went viral overnight and I got all the way up to 40,000 followers like in a week. And people were begging me to teach this because of how I broke it down in that 10-minute video. And just one thing led to another, and my passion grew more and more as I started doing some of these processes for myself and realizing this is real. We really live in a system where we actually have everything already taken care of for us. We just have to come out of a mindset that they programmed us to be in. And, when I started helping people, it just grew like a wildfire. And that's why I'm here.
Amazing. Yeah, when you talked about feeling like there was always something wrong or that that you could tell that they weren't being told the truth. I've always had that similar feeling my whole life
Yeah.
as well, so I can totally relate to that. So it sounds like that's something that goes back even when you were young, like you
Yes.
pretty much always had that. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. As a child, believe it or not, I didn't want toys for Christmas. I wanted encyclopedia sets, like the entire set. And my parents, I mean, they bought what they could get me, but I got from A to F and I read every single one of those encyclopedias back to back to back to back. So I always been into wanting to know, why are we even here to begin with? What is this about?
So you said earlier that kind of what kicked it off from you is that you had, quote unquote, had to use credit. Can you talk more about what was it exactly that happened that kind of opened the door for you?
So gaining my independence, moving away from my mom's house, and I needed a car to get back and forth to work. I didn't have the money to go buy one straight up. And even still, I knew it wouldn't be reliable at the time. I was a mom of one. So I knew that wouldn't be reliable for me to be driving around with her in the car. So now I need to go to the car dealership and apply for credit. And when I go to do it, I can't get it. I need a cosigner. I need this. And it's like none of this stuff ever was, given to me to know that before you go to do something, you have to build up a credit profile. I had none.
Got it. So there
Also,
was no prior education even about what the credit system was and how to use it.
exactly. Also, because my mother had that lack of financial literacy, she would actually use our credit to get things for her because she messed hers up. At the time, we didn't know what it was. We didn't care. We didn't ask questions. But when I turned 18, I realized that somebody used my identity to do things that I didn't authorize. So I dealt with identity theft at a young age.
Wow. Wow, that's very powerful.
Yeah,
So
it was a rough start.
definitely, definitely. But it sounds like from what you've been saying that you've been in this space for quite some time. In other words, you started with your credit repair business. You still run that, is that right?
No, now I just give people tips because I honestly believe that when you learn how to do it for yourself,
Mm,
you'll always be resourceful.
right.
You don't ever need to go pay somebody to do it, or you can become that source for people who don't want to learn or can't learn, and you can become that source.
Yeah, I agree with you, Divine. I often get approached by folks in network who ask me, "Hey, David, can you what's your done for you services? Like, what do you
Hmm.
offer as far as creating documents, preparing
Yeah.
documents, and so forth?" And I think there is room sometimes to have some help with these things, but
Hmm.
for the most part, just like you said, I've always preferred the let's teach them how to fish model.
Yes. Yes. It's better that way.
Amazing. So I was going through all your material, and we're definitely going to share your link with everyone so that people can explore it. You have everything shared on your link tree. For
Yes.
someone who's coming today who maybe doesn't have any, who's catching up, who doesn't have this prior education, who's saying, "Well, where do I start with all of this?" What would be your kind of your top recommendation of where to start?
Well, I always tell people, and this is for anybody here, anybody that ever stumbles across this video. Um, I give out free information by the boatload. If you come to me and say you want to learn this, I will send you an email packed with ways to start things to do. But to answer the question, start by finding out that the things that you've been told is a lie. You have to start there. And you start there by going back into history. because that's where it all starts. When you start to go and dig into history for yourself and not based off of what was taught to you see that there's a lot of stuff that wasn't taught to you that took place that puts you in the position that we're in now. So start with the history.
Okay, great. And why is status correction important?
It's important because it gives you the freedom to, how can I say this? To handle your own affairs, to be independent, to be the god of your life.
Got it. And from your perspective, and when we talk about status correction, there's a lot of different elements. There's we talk about the private security agreement with
Mm-hmm.
your debtor. We talk about the copyright, the UCC filing, based on that agreement, and so forth. What are the elements of status correction that you consider most important?
The most important one is the passport, for sure, because that passport holds more weight than your driver's license. Which is funny because the driver's license is a whole separate thing that you would think held some precedence, but it doesn't because that's its own private entity that you create a contract with. You can easily terminate that. But that passport is needed for you to be a citizen of anywhere. So even if you go to another country, you want to have a certain type of endorsement on your passport that gives you more weight to have the freedom and the sovereignty all over the world, not just in the United States.
Okay, and how does that reflect itself? Does that allow you to open more doors? I mean, what's the practical aspect of that?
So the practical aspect is that you have more freedom when you're traveling around. So you don't have to drive with a driver's license. You don't need a registration. You don't need what's that stuff called? I forgot the name of it. Registrations. You don't need all of that stuff. You are a sovereign, so you make your choices. Also, when the police pull you over, you have a certain endorsement listed on your background that puts you outside of their jurisdiction where they can't do anything to you.
Okay, so do you drive with a passport?
Yes, you should have one.
Okay, but
Even
you
if you
don't
don't carry the actual passport book, you should carry the passport card.
okay. So just talking about you for a second, when you drive around, you just carry a passport card.
So me per se, this is what I always tell people. I still have a driver's license. So if you choose to keep your driver's license, you can. There's a way that you fill out your application that takes you out of their jurisdiction that makes the difference. Applications are what locks us into contracts. So when we learn how to fill out certain applications that takes us away from the jurisdiction they put us in, then we can fill out these applications and still hold our sovereignty over their system because we're not contracting with them. We're just
Okay.
doing what we need to do to get what we need.
Okay. Okay, interesting. So you can keep the driver's license, but you can change. Is that where people talk about signing it without prejudice
Yes,
or
it's a little more to it than just the signature, though, but yes.
okay.
Because when you sign without prejudice, what that means is that you're reserving your rights, right? Without prejudice is, say, for instance, you went to court and you were being sued by a corporation, and
Okay.
they said, we're going to dismiss this with prejudice. What that means is that they'll be able to come back at a later date and take you back to court for this same trial. Without prejudice is reserving those rights so that it's done. If you dismiss it, it's over. It's nothing above it.
Crazy.
It is.
Okay. So the passport is the you say it's the most important. Is that a process that you help people with, that you provide guidance? I mean, how do you approach that?
So I have a course set up and it's set up like a college course. It's literally a course where you learn and do and submit. And everything you submit comes back to me, where I look over it and make sure that you're grasping the concept of how to do these different documents before you go out in the world and send them off. We have to make sure that the mind understands what it's doing. I'm not one of those type of people who teach where I'm giving you information, and it piles up to a point where it makes no sense and you can't go from start to finish because you're jumbled up in even the process. The way that I teach is I make it where you have to actually study this to move forward. You're not going to just get in this course and click around and get this information and leave. No, you have to study this. You have to submit it. I have to look over it. I have to approve it based off of the information that I taught prior to you even getting to that point before you can go to the next point. So it's kind of like um, the only people who are in my community are those who are willing to do the work.
Makes sense. Yep, I've run into this a lot. Again, this kind of goes back to this idea of being spoon-fed information versus,
Yes,
and it takes time. I mean, when
yeah,
I'm reading material, sometimes I have to go over it multiple times for
for
to really,
sure.
you're always going to get another layer of understanding every time you go through it, right?
That's true, yeah. And that's the beauty of it because it's like knowledge has no limits. One day you could read it, and depending on the mood that you're in, you could get a whole different perspective than if you were to read it at the end of the week when you're more relaxed. You see, so it's just like when you go to watch a movie a second time, you notice things you didn't notice the first time. The way that our brain is programmed is for us to be able to compute information. We're literally computers. You get just the way that a computer gets a download and it has to process and go through all of the files and make sure everything is good. That first time, it might not pick everything up. Sometimes you might have to run it again. So it's a process that we have to put ourselves through of unlearning and relearning so that we can start to see the world from a different perspective that we were purposely uh I would say brainwashed not to see.
Got it. Got it. And one of the things that I do, and I'm curious if you do this as well,
Mhm.
is so there is the course material, but then we do weekly private study sessions
That's right.
which are live on Zoom or video calls basically
Yes.
where everybody can bring specific questions and get them
Yes.
answered, not just by me, but by anyone in network who
Yes.
has an answer.
That's exactly what we do in my community as well. I feel like when you're learning information, especially like this, for a lot of people, they're like in their 50s, 60s, some people 70s and 80s learning
Yeah.
this. Can you imagine how hard it is for them to grasp this alone, especially if they don't have that type of environment around them at home that they can go talk to somebody about this? It's really hard. So to be able to learn this for some people, support is necessary. So I feel like having those weekly study sessions. I also have private Telegram chats where we communicate, and I have like moderators and stuff who are further in the process, who help people and things like that. I feel like that kind of support is what gets people to the goal, to the finish line in a process as difficult as this, because it is very difficult in some circumstances.
Totally. And on that point about the support and feeling isolated because your family may not be on
Hmm.
board, so first of all, it sounds like what you've done, Divine, is your whole family's kind of gone along on the journey with you. Is that true?
Not my whole family, I wish.
Well, your
Just
immediate family, I would say.
just yeah, my husband and children. It's just us. Um, our journey, like I said, it started with us questioning. We ended up moving away from home. So we lived in Texas, North Dallas, in Frisco, Texas for 3 years. We literally just moved like 2 weeks ago, almost 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago yet. And now we're in Arizona. So we're all about traveling and understanding. Our children are homeschooled, so I'm just all about being natural with life. Everything has a process, including how we learn, how we grow, how life unfolds for all of us. And I feel like when you let life unfold naturally, then it's a whole lot more understandable.
That's amazing. What drew you to Arizona?
uh, you probably won't believe me, but I gotta be honest. Just like Texas has always been a theme. Arizona has always been a theme. It's kind of like since I was a child and my husband, which is weird, and that's why I'm grateful to have him. But what's funny about us is like we've always already all like known things, or we've already had these reoccurring themes in our past, and everything's just starting to make sense. When I was a child, when me and my husband got close as teenagers, I lived on Arizona Avenue in Baltimore, Maryland. My dad used to collect basketball cups for whatever reason, and he had the Arizona Suns, and I just was like I was absorbed by the logo. I don't know why. I just liked it. I used to play with the cups. Like it's always just been a reoccurring theme for us to end up here. just like Texas. And I'm thankful that I ended up in Texas for the time that I did, because that allowed me to really dig into laws, learning like really the bottom line of this whole process.
In your opinion, is it possible to break through with family members who are not on board with this at all? Or is that kind of like trying to argue with what some people call NPCs, non-player characters? Um, is there a point at beyond which it's just not possible to, try to expose this to new people? What's your thoughts on that for those who are kind of feeling more isolated?
Yeah, you gotta let people go. That's just the reality of it. It was a hard reality for me, because I had to let my entire family on both sides go. Uh, and it was tough because I was used to being the one that always brought new information to them or helped them in their situations. I just was used to being that person, and not having that role anymore. It's kind of weird because I was like that since I was young. But you have to let people realize that what their journey is, because everybody does not have the same path. Everybody does not have the same goals, missions, or even fate in life. Some people are going to live longer than others, like some people are not going to make it past being a baby. So we have to let life be as it is, natural, and unfold the way it's supposed to. And if certain people drop off, we have to be okay with that, because everybody is not meant to come with you where you're being called.
I agree. And I've always I keep emphasizing how important it is to respect the free will of others because free will
Yes,
is so important. So we don't really, if you think about it, if you try to push somebody to have an awakening, you're really trying to control them and
that's right.
you're basically subverting their free will. Not that you wouldn't want to expose people to good information. I think, a judicious use of humor, creating content, which is obviously something that you're doing as well as I am and others.
Hmm.
These are ways to expose people to great ideas
Yep.
and then but still leaving the choice to them. So I think
Yes,
that's much more important than like trying to ram something down another person's throat, for
I
example.
agree. And one thing I always say is, what happens when you wake somebody up before they're ready to be woke? Don't they go crazy on you? Why did you wake me up? I was, like just like an alarm clock going off in an inconvenience in time. That's what you're being when you're sounding an alarm to people who can't hear what you're saying.
Yeah, it can have unexpected consequences, that's for sure.
That's right. I learned those already. I'm not trying to go down that road anymore.
I am also curious about your thoughts about what we could call shills or plants or agents. One thing I've started to notice is there is sometimes, and I wouldn't make this, I wouldn't say this is across the board, but there are definitely certain players that seem like they are deceiving people. In other
Yes.
words, they're giving us part of the truth,
Hmm.
but then they can take people off on a completely different path. I'm probably not going to name any specific names on this video, but they can be easy to pick out. I'm just curious what your thoughts are. Have you noticed that? And if so, like, what's your thoughts on these, potential agents?
I feel like it's agents in every industry. Like literally everywhere there's going to be somebody, like with life, there's a balance of good and bad, positive and negative, however you want to classify it. That's what you're going to have in every industry of life. You're going to have some that are really for the good of people, and you're going to have others who could care less and just want money. There's a lot more of those in this industry, however. David, I'm sure you can attest. There's a lot more of money greedy ones in this
Yep.
uh, field than it is in a lot of other ones, because they're taking advantage of the people being gullible. They're taking advantage of the people not having the knowledge of this information. And it sounds good that your bills are already prepaid in an economy like this where people can barely make ends meet. Yeah, I want to do that. I want to learn that. What do I have to do? And they make it seem like it's just this 1, 2, 3 process, and they spoon feed you what they want you to know, which are half truths, and then they take your money constantly because that's the plan. They really don't have the whole idea. They don't really even know themselves. So my number one thing for people, and that's why I say I give out a boatload of information for anybody who asks, just because you're seeking for it. And I make it make sense. But I always tell people you have to have the knowledge for yourself. That's the only way you're going to get anywhere, is because no one else is obligated to save you. You have to do that for yourself. So if you're seeking a knowledge on a regular basis, it's no way that any of those charlatans can steal anything from you or deceive you or manipulate you.
That's totally true. And we in the study of natural law that I did even prior to studying these laws of commerce, we
Hmm.
talked about the trivium. So we all have God-given intuition. We have the ability to basically discern truth from lies. And
Hmm.
I think that's ultimately what I've learned is you just have to be able to develop your own good discernment so that you can
That's
figure
right.
out if the information that you're receiving is valid or not. And then
Hmm.
you can just either accept it or reject it, or maybe you would need to study it more.
Yep.
People are coming with different motivations. Like you said, some people they're just trying to suck more money out of the system. Others
Hmm.
are all about control. Others,
Yes.
and leading people astray.
Yes.
And some there are even gatekeepers.
Hmm.
Gatekeepers, their goal is to take you a certain level, but then kind of keep you where you're at so you never make further progress.
I
Right.
see one of those go live every day. I don't want to mention the name, but I feel sorry for those who entertain, that type of energy, because it's really hard to come out of that rabbit hole for some people. They just never do.
Right. So that's why we're encouraging folks, folks who are watching or listening. The most important thing is just tap into your own intuition, use your common sense. You ultimately are going to have to decide. No one's going to be able to, come and say,
Right.
well, this person's speaking the truth, this person's not. You're going to have to figure that out for yourself.
That's right. Hmm.
Great. Let's switch gears and talk about trusts. Why are
Okay.
trusts so important?
They're important because they protect everything about this system. So everything that you need to survive in this system, a trust can protect. At this in this day and age, what you should want is protection. You should want to be secure in how your finances are going to be. You should want to be secure in knowing how those generations after you finances are going to be. And now that we live in an age of information where you can literally type the information in and find most of it, you should be ready to move to the next level in your life. So a trust can take you there.
Okay. And do you also deal like I do with both private trusts for individuals, but also business trusts? Like how far do you go down that realm?
So I don't go really far into it because it is very complex and a lot of people don't fully grasp it. Even with my teachings, a lot of people still have a hard time understanding it. I'm more of a common law trust, express trust. I'm more talking about that. However, I do advocate for private trust outside of, the business, but I have not gotten to business trust. So you're a step up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what my mentors have taught me is that trust can be used for asset protection, but also for commerce, to operate in commerce, because
Yes,
now, for example, you can have a private trust or several that actually owns the public entity rather than you owning it. So you've created like an
exactly.
additional layer of protection,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because most people, when they start a business, let's say somebody starts an LLC, you've probably done this, I have, and you set yourself as the owner of the LLC. Well, you haven't really complete created a separation there,
That's right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because
Oh,
if
I
some,
learned the hard way on that.
okay, okay, tell us more about that. What happened?
So again, like I said, I didn't know about credit and stuff. I also didn't know about business. And me and my husband, once we found out about how easy it was to get LLCs, we went a little bit LLC crazy.
Yeah.
And we started all these LLCs. We got our credit really good. And we didn't really understand how certain businesses operate and funding and all that stuff. We got all of this funding and we kind of just like didn't know how to run business. And it was more so on the financial side because we lacked financial literacy. So we did not separate our personal and our business. Everything was just jumbled together and it kind of messed up all of the finances. There was no way to keep up with anything that we were doing. We owed $81,000 in taxes. um, it was a lot. Our
Wow.
finances went from through the sky to all the way underneath the dirt in a short period of time. I would say like 2.5 years.
Wow. And that's when you started to study this material more intensely in order to figure it
Yes.
out.
Yes. That's when I had the time to, because my husband had to end up going back into our business as an employee. He had to go work the money up himself. We couldn't pay for employee anymore. So he was off on the road. We have a trucking company. He was off on the road driving the trucks. And I was at home with the children. I did the homeschooling, but other than that, I had nothing else to do. So I didn't binge watch on Netflix. I just decided to go back to the books and start studying and reading and learning. And like I said, I made the one video on TikTok about it, and it went viral. And once I got people asking me, requesting that I teach this, I hosted a weekly free class for almost a year, free, on what was it, Clubhouse. I had like 600 and something members. They came every week. It was every Tuesday, and we would just talk about this in detail and study material and where we were with the process and how we felt about what we learned and things like that. One thing led to another, and my passion grew because I started doing some of the processes and they were working for me. Like I mentioned, we owed $81,000 in back taxes. I was able to get that um, offset using Accept for Value. That actually works. So a lot of these processes, when you understand the whole picture, they do work. You just got to understand the whole picture, because the information that most people are given are just bits and pieces. It's not the complete picture.
Got it. Can I ask you more about the about what you just shared? Because I've heard there are a number of different ways to do debt discharge. I think that's something that
Yeah.
surprises people is that there's
Yeah.
not just one way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, did you you can share or not share as much detail as you want, but did
Okay.
you interface directly with the corporation? Oh, this was a tax debt, so you were dealing with the
Yes.
IRS.
IRS. Mm-hmm.
So you simply did what's called a banker's acceptance, where you just basically wrote accepted and returned it. Is that right?
That's it. I mean, I put a little bit more on there, but that was pretty much it. And I sent it to Ogden, Utah. And then they sent me two letters. It took them like 4 months to respond. They sent me two letters, and both of them made no sense. So I said,
Was it
"Oh,
one of those letters where it said we need 60 more days to?
yeah. It was one of those." And then, but the bottom of it had nothing to do with the top of it. It was like the top paragraph was saying we need more time, and the bottom paragraph was saying something like, "And if you want more information about how we're going to do this or something, just send this letter back to us requesting what you." I'm like, what? This has nothing to do with the. I get it. I confuse y'all. It works. So then they sent me another letter that was like that. And then they sent me a third letter, and the third letter made even less sense. And when I went to go log in on that, you know, how you get the little IRS portal where you can see
Sure.
your, it's all zeros. Everything's zeroed out.
Yeah, I think that's something that surprises people is that, when these debts are discharged, you're going to have to
Yeah.
go find that out. They're not going to necessarily send you a notice saying, "Hey,
That's what I say.
congratulations, great
Yes.
job."
They're not. I say that all the time when I talk about dismissing traffic citations. They're not going to tell you. They're just not.
So how did you feel when you realized that they had set off that account and you no longer owed that 81,000?
I was so happy. I was like, this stuff really works. Like, I'm so glad I did this. I was just so happy I couldn't even describe it. I couldn't wait to tell people that it worked.
Do you think that there were any prior actions that you took that made that possible? Was there anything, because some people say, and I think you've talked about this as well, that if you take certain actions with your status, for example, it's going to make it easier to set off your accounts. Did you do anything prior to that, or did you just literally just do an acceptance?
I just did it. I just was like, hey, the bill caught me by surprise, and I was like, oh, what can I do about this? And then because I had the knowledge, I was like, can't do conditional acceptance. Let me try Accept for Value. I literally just tried it and it worked.
Yeah,
I didn't,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I didn't
Yeah,
do anything extra, nothing special. Just I just tried it and it worked.
amazing. Amazing. So in terms of your course material, again, going through your link tree, there's a lot of different courses. Where would you recommend somebody start?
So I always say status correction because that is what you want to get done first. That process takes a little bit longer when it comes to all of the things that you have, the steps that you have to take. The private banking process, that one's quick because it's just you filling out documents. You just got to make order to all of the corporations you've contracted. That's the longest part. And the waiting because the IRS takes so long for everything. That's the longest part. But status correction, I say start because that is where you gain your sovereignty when it comes to how you want to handle your affairs. You take yourself out of the jurisdictions. This is what I say to people. They say, oh, some people say, oh, I heard that sovereign citizen stuff, blah, blah, blah. You get people locked up and all of that. The reason why a lot of people do end up facing jail time in a lot of these processes is because they don't have the correct status to do some of the stuff they're doing. That's the main reason. The second reason is because they become greedy on something that can get them money and they start going crazy about it. That's what it is. You have to realize that when you become a sovereign, it is a status change. And once that status is changed to put you at that level, then you'll be able to do some of the other stuff when it comes to offsetting a little bit easier. Now, I told you except for value work without me doing anything. That is true. But other ones won't work. Like I tried conditional acceptance before I had my status corrected and it didn't work. When I did it after, I got a whole lot more respect than the first time. I'm not sure if it was because my status was corrected, but I'm leaning more into that it was. So, in the reality of it, some stuff does work without you having a corrector status, but most of the things you need to have a corrector status. So that is where you should start.
Okay. And other than getting the passport with the corrected status in the passport, what are the other major steps what else is entailed in that?
Affidavit of like so you have to become an owner of your name because that name that was started is a corporation that you have no ownership of. So you have to become the owner of it because you're using it.
The ens legis.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You have to become the owner of it. I know you guys might you probably, especially David, probably heard the term claim the name.
Yes.
Yes, you literally have to do that. So you want to copyright it, trademark it, not trademark it, copyright it. Common law copyright is free. You can do that. It'll stop the government from being able to send you certain notices in the mail because you own the copyright, but it has to be um what's the word I'm looking for? It has to be filed with the courts. So it's a
And
lot
in
of
your
process.
coursework, you're going to walk your client, your students through the process of where to do these filings, for example.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So before you even get to the action part of it, there is a educational part of it. It
Yep.
tells you what these things mean, why you have to do it, where you are currently, how you're going to do it, and all of the details about whatever it is in that section so that you can have the full comprehension before moving forward. And then once you get past the educational part, you'll get to a practical part where you do a an example
Yep.
of the course material. You'll go over an example that I provide for you with instructions. You go over it and then you will fill it out according to the example submitted back. I'll go over it and review it to make sure you grasp the concept of how to do whatever it is in that section. When then I pass you through and you get to the action part where you're actually going out in the world and doing it.
Amazing. Okay. And do you provide templates or do you really want your students to create their own documents or is it kind of a mix?
It's a mix because some stuff I say, look, because I am so reasonable with all of the information I give, I barely charge for it. Because I'm so reasonable with that, there are some things I still want you to do. I don't want you to become so dependent on what I'm giving you. I want you to fact check even what I'm saying. So I still want your mind to be open. So some things I'll leave out on purpose, little small things, but only a person who has been doing their studying will catch that that small thing's been left. But I let them know. I don't just do it by surprise. I tell them.
Okay. I was very curious. You said that your conditional acceptance was much more successful after you corrected your status. What was the subject matter of your conditional acceptance?
So dismissal of a credit card with American Express, and finally it happened. Yes, finally. We've been going back and forth with American Express for almost a year.
And had they filed any kind of lawsuit or it hadn't gotten to that point?
No, it didn't get to that point. So before they were just holding the debt and saying, "Hey, you owe this," sending out correspondence, doing their debt collection activities. And then I sent the first conditional acceptance. It was completely ignored. It was nothing said, nothing done. Um, so I just kind of like put it on the back burner, and then I tried some other things with them later on down the line that didn't work. Then I just threw it out the window for a while, went on with my process of status correction and stuff, got further in the process of that, and then came back to it. And I said, let me try the conditional acceptance again. Because now I'm going to be actually trying it in the status I was supposed to be in, and I'll actually be able to send this private document privately. Also, I did learn a little bit more, during that course of time where I let it go. And so when I did it, I got a response, and we got a response from like a high up executive. They normally don't do that. And it came in an envelope that said private on the outside. I never seen nothing like this in my life. And I was like, when you know how you get the informed delivery email telling you
Sure.
what's coming in the mail? I showed my husband, I was like, oh my goodness, look at this. They responded to us. Look at this envelope. I never seen an envelope that says private on the outside. And we opened it up and we read it, and it was from somebody high up in the American Express, and it was basically saying that the debt was let discharged, and not in those words, but I was like, I didn't understand it. I had to ask ChatGPT what the letter meant because it was in some different type of terminology, but it went away. They
And then
still
were you
go
able
ahead.
to verify by logging into the account or a
So
statement of,
the account was gone. You can't log into the account anymore.
okay.
Like your access when you go to try to log in, it doesn't work. It's like you don't have a username or password. You have to register for an account. So I was like, okay. The only thing that my husband still gets is the emails, like telling him when the bill is due, but it's no bill,
And was
and it's
anything
not on his
changed on
credit.
the credit report?
It's gone. It's got
Okay.
deleted. I have the Experian letter. I posted in my group when it happened. Like I was so happy about it. I posted that it's been deleted. It's been a whole lot of stuff deleted.
Yeah, and sometimes, we run into issues sometimes where you have to be careful. For example, I had a credit card that was seriously delinquent because I've been trying to, as I've been testing out these
Yeah.
processes, it's gotten more and more delinquent. And then suddenly it was removed from one of my credit reports, just suddenly.
And they
Uh,
won't say nothing for the most part. It's
yeah.
just so you just get an alert that it's been deleted.
And the challenge I ran into is because I was using different processes.
You don't
Um,
know which one worked.
I'm not sure which one more because I was dealing with affidavits and I had actually
Uh-huh.
sent a third notice, a third affidavit through the administrative process, but I also did some dispute letters. And I know that
Ah.
I would say in retrospect, it's not a good idea to mix processes. We
It's
really
not.
shouldn't,
Mm-hmm.
because now I'm
But
not even sure which one was the one that did it.
the administrative process does work, so it could have been that.
Yep. But I haven't fully corrected my status, so that's interesting. But I guess, the
You
after,
still can do the administrative process outside of
sure.
fully, yeah. That holds a lot of weight. And I can tell you that from when I was doing the credit repair and how you spent sending dispute letters.
Yeah.
We sort of did something like an administrative process, and it does work with or without
Interesting.
this knowledge. Yeah, because
Oh,
and I think it's mainly because of consumer laws that back up some of that process.
okay, so you guys have run some administrative processes and maybe helped others as well.
Yes.
Did
Mm-hmm.
you ever get to a case where you had to do the process all the way to the end where you had your three certificates of non-response, you had your entire documentation, and now it's kind of like what's the next step beyond that?
So I did. We had to do it with Santander, the card auto loan. We just filed a small claims petition, and when we filed the petition and they got note of it, that's when they took everything away.
Okay, so you filed the small claims petition and that's where you took your documentation to the court.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And we didn't even have to go to we didn't even have a hearing. That's the funny thing about it. Before we even got a date for the hearing, they took everything off and everything was done.
But did the court give award a judgment in that case, or it was just
No, no, we didn't even get that far. We probably filed a petition, probably 2 weeks it was over because we had a pretrial. And when we went to the pretrial, the judge told us that we were asking for injunction and he didn't have jurisdiction because he was a justice of the peace. So he couldn't do the injunction, which was us saying make them delete it. However, we would have to file a whole new claim for the amount of money we was asking for defamation of character through libel. So we didn't even get a court date. They just took it off when they got wind that we were taking it to a higher level.
Okay, so just to clarify, the defendant in this case, which was the bank, they re obviously when a court case is filed, they're going to be notified that they're the defendant, and that was enough in
Yes.
this case for them to say, well, they probably maybe they just said, I mean, we don't really know, but they probably said, well, this is going to be too much trouble or too much hassle, so let's just go ahead and discharge it.
What it is too is they'll be like they'll look at what's on the table. And so for Santander, they were past the statute of limitations in both states that we lived in.
Yeah.
Also, they were past the statute of limitations for reporting on a credit report, something negative. It was 8 years. They shouldn't have still been reporting. And when we were going directly to them, they were not trying to wipe the debt away. So when we took all of our evidence and took it to the courts and just filed the petition. Like I said, all we did was file the petition showing all of the back and forth correspondence that we've been sending and receiving from them for almost a year. And they just deleted it. And what I think it is they were like, for us to hire a lawyer for something we are in the wrong about, it's not worth it. Just delete it.
Okay, and what kind of debt was it? Was it a personal loan? I mean, what kind of debt was it?
Auto loan.
Auto loan. Okay.
Yep. It was an auto loan that my husband, a car he had got like back in 2016.
Got it. And your students, do they sh often share their wins? Do you have like a vehicle? Because in my community, we have a channel or a topic in Telegram where people can share wins. In fact,
Mhm.
someone just shared a big win related to a mortgage, which was a big surprise. This community, anybody can jump in. There's no fee for joining that Telegram community, but
Mhm.
I'm just curious, how do you showcase or share people's wins as a way to help kind of create motivation and encouragement?
So they do share it themselves as well, through the Telegram group that we have. They'll come in and just say, "Hey, look at this letter I got. That means I have money on the way," or "Look at I just got discharged such and such," or whatever. They'll just come in and they'll tell people. And the beauty about it is they don't gatekeep what they did to get that process done. Like I have people who were able to get their 5-star passports, and I honestly don't know how because I never ever me personally I haven't found anybody who knows exactly how to do it. However, I started studying the information and I came up with a way to do the application in a certain way and how to in a letter that you send with it and an affidavit and all of this stuff. And for some people, because they took what I gave them and just started studying more, they were able to get what they wanted out of it. And they come in a group and tell people. People were able to get like for the private banking process, the IRS will send you a check in the mail for the amount that the debt is that they say you owe, because it's a process that you have to do to make them discharge the debt properly. Because these corporations are supposed to file certain IRS forms and they don't. And so these debts are not being properly handled because they have two sets of books. One set of books is a private and one is a public. And the public side shows it like you owe this debt. But on the private side of the books, it's showing like that they already been paid out and how much they're gaining from what you're paying them on top of what they already got. And they are the hidden books. And those kind of books are the ones that they file are supposed to be filing their IRS forms saying that these debts are properly being handled, but they're not. So you got to get in a certain status and create certain entities so that you can go and do that for them since they are not doing it properly. And when you do that and you do it properly, the IRS will send you a check for whatever that amount is because that is letting you know that the debt has been properly canceled, and now that's the funds that have are owed to you. And so there's some people who come in and show that they're getting progress in that, and it's very exciting because when I learned this stuff, I never really said anything was guaranteed because I didn't know. And I still don't to this day because this is not knowledge that I created. This is a system that's already been put together. And me and people like David are just learning it and taking the steps and sharing our steps along the way. So there's no like person that can create something out of this system because it's already been created at the time of them creating the birth certificate and all of that kind of stuff. So this is something private that we're learning. And when we see that is working, it just makes, for me personally, it makes me really excited because some people are past me.
Yep. We say that student, there's a saying, how does it go? That, when you're mentoring someone, you want to encourage them so much that they may surpass you in their
Yes.
abilities, right? We don't ever want to
Yes.
hold back. And that's how I think you can tell a true mentor from someone who's just trying to,
Hmm.
build their little empire, or
Yes.
or even, may have other, let more nefarious goals.
Yeah,
Like, as mentors, as teachers, I want people to go farther than I have,
exactly.
right?
Hmm.
Because we're learning this together. So I really
Exactly.
appreciate the fact that you mentioned that.
Yeah, it's important to me to create a nation of thinkers, because we've been conditioned to not use our brains. Everything is so convenient. It's down to the point where literally you can have food dropped off at your front door hot. That says a lot about where we have come. And I'm only 34. And in the time that I've been in this world, I've seen changes happen a lot from since I was in the 90s. I remember we didn't even have area codes to dial a phone number. Now you can pick up a
Yep.
phone and see somebody's face and talk to them through the phone. And it just lets you know how far we have come to a point where our mind is not being used as it's supposed to.
Sure. And no knock to your TikTok content, of course, but platforms like TikTok, they further shorten the
Yeah.
attention span
Yeah.
because people are just taking in information in small bits, or,
Hmm.
I would say dopamine hits, really.
Yes. Yes.
And,
Hmm.
but we obviously want to continue to use all those different platforms to get the word out. But, just to your point, I mean, we couldn't even imagine some of these technologies just a few years ago. I mean, when I was a kid, we were still using rotary phones. So, and phones with corded phones and rotary phones.
Hmm. Yeah, so I get it. And then, I was like I said, I was raised in poverty, so we always had the worst of the worst. So we always had the lowest level of everything. So even if something new came out, if it was computers coming out, we had the worst or the lowest computer that they had, which was the biggest, most heaviest. Like, so to see things change so much, I feel like people have to come back into using their minds to create for themselves, to make choices for themselves in their life. They have gotten so used to, since I specifically can say this from my own experience, but what I've observed is since 9/11 in 2000, since that happened, it just seemed like people got dependent on the government to push them through life.
100%. Yeah, it's time to take back your mind. And that's why, you're not, in order to be up for this, it's just like you said, Divine, you have to be willing to think.
Yes.
You have to be willing to think for yourself. That's what sovereignty is. Freedom, it comes with a price. I often say nothing in life is truly free, and that's a paradox because
I like
freedom is
that.
not free.
That's right. I say that. I tell people because they're like, you're charging for this information. In reality, wherever you are in this journey, you have to pay for something.
Yep.
You just got to choose where that money's going to go.
Yep. And payment can take many forms. It could be FRNs, but it could also be paying with your time, with
Yes.
paying attention, with following
Yes.
up, with doing the homework assignment, and then of course, for example, when you have success, with sharing that with others so that you can help others grow. So we kind of pay it back. Even liking a
Yeah.
video. So
Yes.
folks that are watching this, smash through the like button on this video because that you're paying for this content with your like. We're not
Exactly.
charging for this interview.
Yeah.
Obviously it takes the time it takes to watch it. Um, but you're essentially, when you give a like, you're basically recognizing and honoring the fact that there's an exchange going on here.
Hmm. I always tell people that I have so many videos going into detail about stuff on YouTube that's free. And I'm talking about stuff in detail, and you can go watch those videos and just like them, and that's it. You don't have to like you said. There's a lot of ways to pay something, even if you're showing up to my free study sessions and I'm, giving my time and teaching something. That's a payment.
So I'd like to ask your opinion about something. we can see that clearly there's a master plan to enslave all of humanity, and that's kind of where this is all headed.
Hmm.
How fast, do we have a chance to put the brakes on that? And if so, what is it going to take?
I do. I believe we do. Because I feel like the power has and always was in our hands. We just were purposely taken away from the mission that was always a part of, who we are. I feel like a lot more people are coming back into who they are and aligning with their true purpose of being here. And with that happening at such a fast scale, the powers that were are losing a lot of control. And it's stopping them from being able to push forward with their plan as fast as they wanted to. Of course, like I always say, there's casualties with every war, so there's going to be people that we lose. That's just a part of it. But I feel like there's going to be a greater amount of people who escape from that system just off of realigning with who they are and why they're here.
I agree with that. We have to keep going no matter what.
Yes.
It's important that yeah. I don't know about you, Divine, but I wake up every day with a sense of purpose and,
Yes.
an underlying motivation. Some days I might sleep better than others. Not
Mm-hmm.
every day is the same, but I always wake up kind of with that underlying motivation and, joy and appreciation for life. And I think that's important. Wouldn't you say that it's important to actually find the joy in these processes rather than just seeing them as a chore or, kind of being afraid of the debt collectors, so to speak, knocking down the door?
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on the mindset that it takes to really just open this up?
So I think that you do have to make it fun. With anything that's new, especially information that you're not familiar with about the world you live in, you're learning that it's some trash really behind the scenes. I feel like if you make it fun, it'll become a part of your life. It'll become something that you look forward to. And when I first started learning about this, that's how I perceived it as this is something that's helping my future generations. And anything that's helping those future generations is something that's going to bring joy to me and bring peace to me. Every day is going to give me the purpose to keep going forward with this because somebody has to make the sacrifice to break this system up. It has to be somebody. And what we do today can carry on for eternity. So for me, it's kind of like I looked at it like this is this is my gift to my generations after me. I look at it as that. So that's what makes it fun for me.
Amazing. And I've often said, people say sometimes as an excuse, well, I'm just one man, I'm one woman, what can I do?
Hmm.
And it kind of seems like that could be true, but one thing that I've learned is that's not really true.
It's
One
not.
one man or one woman, even, taking the right action can have a cumulative effect that's going to unlock, it's going to create a cascading effect because we live in a world where there of cause and effect. So
Hmm.
when you become the cause point, which means that you learn how to think,
Hmm.
and learn how to harness your thoughts and then learn how to act in alignment with those thoughts, then you can set in motion the a cascade of events that would lead to greater things. It's true that you're
Hmm.
going to need to probably collaborate with other people. No one man or woman is necessarily going to do more than they can, but we can collaborate and we can unlock the door to a higher level. And I think that's essentially what we're doing here. And that's why
Yes.
that's part of why I wanted to have this conversation with you, Divine, because it's not a competitive thing. We're joining forces, but
Yes.
we're approaching things from different angles and different experiences. What are
Yes.
your thoughts on that?
That's how I've been looking at it the whole time. But to be honest, because so many people in this field are not coming from it with a genuine standpoint, they're looking at it automatically as a competition. So it stops us from being able to reach the levels and heights that we could as a whole because they're already looking at it wrong. And so that's the main reason why I kind of was solo. But in my opinion, it takes a nation, it takes a village. The more people who come together with different perspectives, different experiences, the more people that come together to do that, that saying the more the merrier, it's
Yeah.
true. It's true. The more people that come together is going to give it more power. It's going to help more people on a bigger scale. And that's why I don't even call myself a teacher because I don't like to make myself seem like I'm over those who I share this information with. The more that I share this information with people, I want to see them grow past me and bring people together and us come together as a whole. So I'm very excited about this. That, like I said, it was divinely guided because that's what I've been trying to do for years. Not only just about this process, but about other things I've been trying to band together. That's always my goal.
Yeah, and we were talking in the pre-show, just to share this with the audience. We
Mhm.
were talking in the pre-show how I had someone had sent me your contact, but I guess they told me that it was someone else, or there was a misunderstanding. I thought I was communicating with someone else, so I wasn't really familiar with your work. But then you sent me your work, and I was like, "Wow, this is perfect because this dovetails." Because I've started talking a lot more recently about trusts, about status correction, operating in the private. And when I saw your material, I was like, "Wow, Divine is working on all these exact processes, so this works
Wow.
really well."
See, divinely got it. That's, in my opinion, that's the best way because we don't, coming from the egotistical human standpoint, we don't look at life in all aspects as we should sometimes. And it can, cause us to overlook things. So when things happen like this, it seems like you get a greater outcome because it wasn't planned by us.
Exactly. So for someone who's watching or listening and wants to get involved and start with your material, where would you recommend that they start?
My YouTube channel. Start on my YouTube channel. Start with the free material. Shoot me an email. Ask for the free material. I will start with that stuff first. Grasp the concept of the world not being what you were taught it to be. And then once you get to that level of understanding, allow yourself to decide whether you're going to continue independently working or if I'm somebody that align with and want to come and join my private community. In the email, if you do email me for the free stuff, I have information on how to join the private community if you do choose to do that. But I like to leave the choice up to everybody. I'm not one of those type of people that's like, oh, join me. I don't recruit for new people. That's more that I have to do. But that's just a joke. But I'm just not one of those marketing type of people. I let things happen naturally. So if you feel aligned to come and join my private community, welcome. We welcome you. If you want to do it independently, much success to you. And I hope that the information I share with you takes you where you need to go.
Amazing. And with your permission, I'll definitely share some links below the video so that folks can find you more easily.
Okay, yeah, sure. I appreciate you for that.
And perhaps this is just planting seeds, nothing that has to be committed today, but maybe we'll have an opportunity to collaborate further in some capacity. It could be a live training or a training on a specific topic. It sounds
Sure.
like there is some overlapping, but also non-overlapping areas. I
Hmm.
don't know if you've gotten Divine into, I talked about the business trust. That's something I'm getting into. Another
Hmm.
area is I've been studying equity with a mentor. I don't know if you've,
I've been studying equity, yeah, but
okay, great.
you're probably further than me because I've been doing it independently. You have a mentor. So
Great. So these are additional areas that we can explore together, but we're just going to be unlocking a whole new level here. I think that's what
yes.
we're agreeing to.
I'm with it. Anything to help the people, and I'm like I said, it's always been about coming together. So I feel safe with your energy. I feel like you have the right idea when it comes to where you want to go with this information for others. You're not in it, selfishly. So everything to me seems like a go. I'm all for it.
That's great. Thank you, Divine. Thank you so much for spending time with us today and sharing of your experiences and also, what you've been able to learn. I really appreciate that you've joined me on the channel today.
Well, I appreciate you guys for having me, you and your audience. And I hope, like I said, I'm all for it. I hope to see you guys again soon.
Amazing. All right. Take care, everyone. See you soon.